On June 16th, 2021, Governor Baker signed a law in act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension until April 1st, 2022 of the remote meeting provisions of his March 12th, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. Thank you. If that made sense.
It does.
Okay.
Sort of.
Do we have any changes or omissions, additions to the order, to the agenda?
Just that I want to have a brief discussion.
So Penny wants to have a discussion about CPC?
Yes, just a very brief one.
Okay, and at the end, I just want to thank everybody for participating in the forestry program. I'll just let you know where that took us to. All right.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Richard. Do we have a second?
Second.
That's Penny. All right. All in favor? We have Doug. Is Doug on yet? Jen?
Yep.
And Brendan?
Yes.
Thank you. And Frank, yes. Great. Thanks. Okay. Penny?
Yes, I just wanted to give the board a very quick overview of CPC, of an upcoming proposed purchase. It's the Border Street property. It's the field on the east side of Border Street, just before you get to Cohasset, that open field. And we will be discussing it tonight. And I just wanted the board to be aware that it is being discussed. There's a lot of questions that have to be answered for this to go forward with CPC. One of the biggest problems, which will be interesting to see how it pans out, is the price tag on it is way above what we've ever paid for CPC property. Our average is $17,000 per acre for open space. And so there's a lot to be worked out. Of course, I'm assuming the rest of the board feels the same as me. If we can buy open space, we'll buy open space. But we have to be responsible in doing it and not go cuckoo and pay a fortune for something that has value. It's beautiful, but the price tag is way up there. So I will be putting back at our next meeting what happens tonight at CPC, because I will be leaving at 6:30 to go to the library to be part of that discussion. So I don't know if there's any thoughts here that would like to put in.
So Penny, I've been pondering this. You and I have chatted a little bit, but you know, obviously, as you say, we're all interested in hanging on to or keeping open space. We do have a criteria for acquiring open space, you know, water resources being at the top, and then contiguous other parcels. There's a whole bunch of things
Right.
that work with that. The other pieces I think would be important for me to know, and you can discuss it with the CPC members, is how much money we have in like our allocation for community preservation now, how much money the Conservation Commission has.
What's in the open space fund? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I will find that out.
Because, you know, we have acquired some other property and we'll still be looking for more. Your point about this being so much more than others, you know, maybe the Community Preservation Commission could consider funding at the level that we've done for other open space properties, and then see if there's other monies available from other sources.
That's one of the things that will be discussed tonight.
You know, I think that's important. I think we would be hard pressed to ever go acquire more space if people thought that we were going to pay a premium every time we bought a piece of land. And then the other people in the past that have sold land to the town,
Right.
at a discounted price
Not
to
fair.
preserve it would be looking at like saying, what, you know, what were we thinking? So a couple of things to consider when you're discussing that. But
Yes.
again, you know, if there's a way to do that, if we can reach out to other
Groups.
places, if they've got some other fundraising things in mind or something, I think the commission would certainly embrace that and maybe hopefully be part of it. So.
I will. It's just, there's so many questions, Frank. All right,
Right.
that haven't been answered, and so I'll see what I can find out tonight.
Awesome.
And I'll report back to our group before we decide whether or not to support this. If it goes forward, one thing for sure is it does have to have. What am I trying to say, Frank? We have to get.
You have to get an appraisal.
Yes, the appraisal. I don't know. I just had a senior moment. Sorry. The appraisal, a CPC appraisal on it, and then we'll kind of have a better idea.
Right.
Okay. But thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Penny.
Okay. Well, thanks, Penny. And you're going to be ducking out.
Yes, at 6:30, because I have to go from here to the library because we're going to, at this meeting, meet in person.
So how many people do we have? We have Jen,
Oh,
Richard,
You and
E.
Brendan.
and Brendan. Good. Okay.
I just joined.
And
So-
Doug.
okay, Doug's there.
There we go. Okay. Anybody else? Did anybody else? I gave my full 2 cents on the
Oh,
CPC
you're right on,
article.
Frank.
Anybody else have one?
I would share your sentiments, Frank. So I agree.
Thanks, Jen. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for working at that, Penny. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll keep you posted.
Okay. We can move right into 30 Pheasant Hill. On July 12th, 2021, 5:30 p.m. the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Richard Hom and Janet Camacho for work related to a septic repair at dwelling at location 30 Pheasant Hill Drive, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the agenda posted on the town website. Okay, we have someone from Morse Engineering.
Yep. For the record, James Garfield. I'm an engineer at Morse Engineering. Here tonight representing the applicant for this notice of intent associated with the septic system repair, 30 Pheasant Hill Drive. Our property lines are shown here in bold. Pheasant Hill Drive's down at the bottom of the page. The existing 3-bedroom house is centered on the lot. The subject resource area is a BVW shown to the rear of the lot in a blue line. We also show the 1,500-foot buffers in red and green. The existing site is serviced by a failing Title V system composed of a septic tank and leaching field in the rear yard, the majority of which lies within the 50-foot wetland buffer. We're proposing a new septic tank and pump chamber, which will pump the effluent uphill to the front yard, to a Presby EnviroSeptic leaching field, and a portion of which actually resides outside of the 100-foot buffer, and all of which, in terms of the leaching field, resides outside of the 50-foot buffer. And we're also proposing an erosion control barrier, down gradient of the proposed work. So with that, I'll leave it to you for any questions.
Thank you, James. Richard?
I don't really have any questions. It's a considerable improvement, and I don't have any real questions.
Okay. Penny?
I just have one question, James. Is there a reason that the leaching field, I believe it is, can't come closer to the street? Is there a setback that they have to get a little more out of the 100-foot?
I think that the reason that we did the perk test where we did, there's a bunch of brush in the front yard. I haven't personally been to the site, but I'm just gauging that off of the plan here.
Okay.
So I imagine it's just so we're not clearing more vegetation than needed.
Okay. No, it's much better than how things were. but we have to remember this development is very old. So that's why everything is in the buffers.
Right. Thanks, Penny. Jen?
Yep.
Nothing to add.
Okay. Brendan?
I have no questions.
Excuse me, Amy?
Don't forget Doug.
Oh, Doug.
You can wait. I can be last.
Sorry about that.
No, no need to apologize. I was going to say they probably didn't want to move it closer to the street because it goes up grade from there. They're digging
Okay.
into the hill, and then they'd have to compensate with that. And then that I was guessing that was the reason, because I could see it's closer than 20 feet to the house. So I'm guessing, James, you had to get a variance for that as it was.
Yes, from the Board of Health, correct.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so that's I think that would be a good reason for that. But I have no comments other than a couple really nerdy survey ones that I'll leave to myself.
Well, if we have time, we'll circle back.
Yeah,
to-
you can come back if you want to hear some real nerdy comments from a surveyor. Like,
All
All right.
right.
And so I will comment that I concur that it's buffered at BVW, that it's an improvement. And also that, yeah, there's some pretty substantial shrubbery along the roadway of Pheasant Hill Drive, like some really, big roadies and some nice thick stuff. So that, I mean, that could be what, and some pretty mature trees. But I mean, it is like it slopes, pretty good slope down there to the wet land. DEP didn't have any comments, will be an upgrade. And yeah, no, it's a nice property, actually, nice neighborhood. So I think we should give it some orders. And we'll just qualify it that, we didn't confirm this wetland line, but I think for purposes of this septic improvement, it's fine. And also largely corresponds with the tree line.
Okay. Thanks, Amy. Do we have anybody in the audience for this one?
Which you would raise your hand to participate, use the raise hand feature. Seeing none.
I don't have any additional comments. I was kind of hoping Doug would enlighten us on what was wrong with the survey, but
I'm going to make a motion to close then.
Penny doesn't want to hear it. Do we have
Well,
a second?
no, I'm just trying.
Let's keep going. We want to get you.
I'll
we wanna hear
second it.
Thanks, Richard. All in favor? Doug?
yes.
Jen?
Yep.
Brendan?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 30 Concord. On July 12th, 2021, at 5:30 p.m. in the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws and Section 30700 Town Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Tom Epwich, Awanich, thank you, for work related to a septic system and a dwelling located at 30 Concord Street, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting will be available on the agenda posted on the town website. And we have Morse again.
So again, for the record, James Garfield with Morse Engineering. Here for the septic system repair, along with this notice of intent at 30 Concord Street. This is a site that resides in Hummerock. The total square footage of the lot is 7,500 square feet, and the existing 3-bedroom house takes up a good portion of that. The site lies entirely within FEMA flood zone AE elevation 13, and it's currently serviced by a failing Title V cesspool located in the rear yard. We're proposing a new 1,500-gallon septic tank, which will flow by gravity to crushed stone leaching field in the right side yard. And yeah, there's not too many other places to put it on this site. So with that, I will leave it to you for any questions.
Thank you. Richard, why don't you,
I can
Give
tell
us-
you a lot about this house for a lot of reasons, but I can professed to be very knowledgeable that there really is no other place to put it. This is much needed. I believe this house was just recently bought, and this was a contingency to get this done. So it's needed it for maybe 20 years. This needed to be done.
All right.
Better late than never.
Thanks. Doug?
No issue with design. Squeezing it in there, you're right, no place to put it. And it only because it's the same issue as the last plan, I'm going to go ahead and say it. James, either the bearings or your north arrow is wrong on both of these plans.
Glad I didn't do them.
Well, whoever's under the bus right now might as well change the oil, because
Yeah.
I'm doing your brand new surveyor a favor. Have him check that. All right.
I'll let them know.
All right.
Good. Thanks, Doug. Penny?
Nope, it looks good to me. Thank you.
Okay. What we got here? Jen?
Yeah, all set.
Brendan?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Amy?
No significant change of comment from the last one, other than it is a barrier beach, coastal dune, land subject to coastal storm flowage, no DEP comments, badly needs an upgrade. And I inquired on Board of Health on all three of these, and none of them are through Board of Health yet, but it's still, we'll be getting the approved plan that they do approve, which they will. But I think that the variance on this one is, as well as the next one coming up. And there was a comment on Pheasant Hill too, but nothing that would prevent us from closing. So I think that for butters, maybe we could do that. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody in the audience? And I don't have anything to add for this one, so I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to close.
That's
I'll
Penny.
second it.
Richard's a second. So Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yep.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank, yes. Great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
31 Lowell Street on July 12th, 2021, 5:30 p.m. the Town Hall Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40, Mass General Laws, and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Stanley and Lynn Velazza for work related to the septic repair on the dwelling at 31 Lowell Street, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the agenda posted on the website.
Hey, Frank, we have Rob from Grady's on for this one.
Great. Good evening, Rob.
How you doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
So I'm Rob Carlazona from Grady Consulting. I'm actually just filling in tonight for Darren. He's on vacation this week. Basically, this is a site plan. Actually, it's a septic repair plan for 31 Lowell Street down in Hummerock. As you can see on the plan, this house is right on Hummerock Beach. The seawall is labeled right on the right side of the plan. So just like almost most of Hummerock, we have the resource areas, land subject to coastal storm flowage, FEMA flood zone, velocity zone, barrier beach, and coastal dune. Just a little backstory with this particular project. The project started off back in 2015 as a raise and rebuild and a septic upgrade. Since then, the scope of the project has changed, and we're no longer tearing the house down, and we're just doing a septic repair. Since we're not tearing the house down, the design has changed a little bit. So you can see here, we have a new proposed 1,500 gallon septic tank, a D-box, and we have a septic trench up on the north side of the property and a trench along the south side of the property. we're really limited on space on this one, and it's just about maximum feasible compliance. There's not a whole lot else to do here. It's a substantial improvement over what's there now. There's just an existing cesspool, so it's kind of, I think, all we can do on this one.
I missed the part where you just explained about it was going to be a tear down, but it's not.
Yep. So this, the scope back in 2015, this was originally a raise and rebuild of the existing dwelling.
Mhm.
And we actually had gotten approval from you guys and from Board of Health for the project as, you know, basically septic upgrade and raise and rebuild. Since 2015, I'm not sure. I guess the homeowners didn't want to do the project. I'm not 100% sure. But we're now just doing the septic repair, basically upgrade. So it's basically a septic repair now. That's all it is.
Okay. Richard, again, this is your neck of the woods.
Yeah, it is. I also know this house well. It's a 1 block further away than the last one. I'm so happy. I don't know why we voted to allow them to raise and rebuild it in the first place, because it is such a gorgeous old house. And I believe it is for sale now, and this is probably a condition for getting it sold. That's a guess. That last part is a guess, but I know it is for sale. And yes, same as everything else along the coastal side of Hummerock. It's very tight quarters, and I believe he's absolutely correct. There's just no other place to go, but it's definitely a big step up.
Okay, thank you. Doug?
All grading is just going to be returned back to existing grade. I don't see any.
No choice.
Right. There's
Correct.
you're not filling at all, correct?
Correct. None of the grades are changing on this.
Yeah. Okay. It's good. Yeah, no other questions.
Penny?
I'm all set, thank you.
Jen?
All set.
Brendan?
All set.
Okay. Amy?
Yes, similar to the last site, a great improvement. No comments. I don't think it has official Board of Health approval yet, but yeah, I would say a motion closed would be greatly entertained.
Could I ask just a question, Frank?
Sure.
What happens, Amy, to the original orders of raise and rebuild that were issued back 6 years ago? Do they just annul and void now that we've issued new orders?
Yeah, so it's just administratively, it's certificate of compliance work commenced.
Okay, yeah.
So if it's on the, if the orders are still on the title, that it'll be part of getting everything in line, you know, for the project.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Where did we leave off here?
Do you have a question?
I do not have a question. So I'll take a motion.
Any abutters? Anybody else?
Anybody? Yeah, anybody in the audience? Thank you, Richard.
Make a motion to close.
That's Penny.
Yep.
I'll second it.
Richard got a second. All in favor, Doug?
Yes.
Jen?
Yep.
Brendan?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Great, thanks a lot.
All right, thanks, guys.
This is for Mass Electric. On July 12th, 2021, during the 5:30 meeting at Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of the Massachusetts Electric Company for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaws for activity related to replacing 4 utility poles along Glades Road. In Scituate, abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meetings available on the agenda posted on the website. Someone from Ty and Bond?
Yes, we have Jeremy on the line.
Yes, good evening. For the record, my name is Jeremy Degler with Ty and Bond, representing the Massachusetts Electric Company tonight. This project is for, as you said, utility pole replacement, replacing 4 poles along the north end of Glade Road. This work is within land subject to coastal storm flowage, 100-foot buffer zone to coastal beach, coastal bank, and salt marsh. Coastal beach, coastal bank, land subject to coastal storm flowage. Yes. All right. I think I covered all of those. We're looking at 12 square feet. It's 2 square feet per pole. There's just going to be 4 poles replacement, all done in one day, really quick, in and out.
Okay. Jen?
So I'm looking at the map we're seeing, and I'm counting 3 dots. Is 18-31, is that 2 poles?
Here,
Oh.
I believe so. Yes. Yeah. So you got P18, P31. That's 2 poles being replaced.
Okay, but they're like really close to each other.
Yes.
They're buddies.
Um,
Oh, where we could go with
Okay.
Everyone needs a friend.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to additional to say. P15 will be a real gem for you, but good luck.
Yep. And we'll have all sorts of erosion and sediment controls being used in all these locations as well while construction is being done.
Okay. Penny? Sure.
No, it looks lovely.
There we go. Brendan?
I have nothing.
Doug?
No, all looks good. Looks good. They need to be replaced.
Right. Richard?
No, I'm fine.
Amy?
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be done. Pretty confident Mass Electric and their contractors have standard BMPs for one-day project, no minimizing all impacts. I would say closing would be great.
-3.
Comment from,
Anybody? Yeah, anybody in the audience for this? So I have a question. Typically, when you see a pole removal, so they put up a new pole, they pull the old one, but then they leave the other one attached. So there's only one in the base, but there might be another pole hanging onto that until other stuff gets moved. Is that how that usually works? Or?
Yes, that's exactly it.
But in terms of ground contact and stuff, there'll only be one pole.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything else, so I'll take a motion.
For -3.
-3, right.
Okay, so you guys were neck and neck. Penny made the motion, Richard did a second.
Sure.
All in favor, Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yep.
Brendan,
Yes.
and Frank. Yes, great. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for meeting with me tonight.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
24 Dartmouth Street. On July 12th, 2021, during the 5:30 meeting at Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Greg O'Brien for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaw for activities related to replacing and extending a deck on property located at 24 Dartmouth Street, Scituate. Butters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the agenda posted on the website. And who do we have for this?
well, we should have Greg O'Brien.
Tom Devane has raised his hand.
it could be his neighbor that I met, is on
Okay.
what's,
So I'm sorry, who's presenting this?
Nobody.
Yes, I'm presenting it. This is Tom Devane. I'm Greg O'Brien's neighbor. He is unavailable tonight. And, basically what he would like to do, with your permission, is to replace and extend his deck.
Okay.
With new footings.
There's 8 footings.
Okay. Well, let's see. Again, I'm going to go to Richard just because it's in the hood.
Yeah. I don't know this house nearly as well. It's on the other end of Hummerock. I do know it well enough to know its relationship to the street, and it would be it looks like I didn't realize it was going to be this big until just now. That's helpful.
So existing and then, yeah. What's it look like, Richard? 5 feet more all the way around?
No, I'm sorry, this is Tom Devane.
No, that's fine.
The existing deck is 16 by 20, and he would like to make it 20 by 20. So adding 4 feet. On the
Okay,
south side.
that's helpful. Thank you.
Oh, okay. That's not bad, Richard.
No, it's not. And so he's adding 4 feet. He must also be repairing the existing deck while he's at it, if he's adding 8 posts to that.
So we're taking the deck down and putting in a new deck up.
Okay. Thank you. That makes a lot more sense. Okay. And now I can actually picture it. And other than knowing a little more, and I can't really read all of this, but knowing a little more about how he's getting the posts put in and how he's going to do that, I don't really have any problems or any questions, but that is one.
The question is, how are they putting them in?
Yeah. What are they going to use and how are they putting them in?
Tom,
Yes.
can you answer that?
Yes, post hole diggers.
Oh.
Okay. So no big equipment, no big trucks or anything.
No, none at all.
And I'm taking away everybody else's questions now. So what kind of posts are they?
It's concrete, putting in sonotubes with concrete.
Okay.
yeah, they're precast, right, Tom?
No, they're going to pour them.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I've got for now.
All right.
The wealth.
Brendan?
So are there existing footings that are being removed, or all 8 of these are new?
They're all new.
What supports it now, Tom?
Frankly, it's not even there anymore. It was torn down.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Okay.
The footings are gone and everything.
Yes. There was not much to the footings. They were cinder block. I don't even know what they were on. As I recall looking at it, they were cinder block supports.
Goodness.
Okay.
It wasn't very safe.
Brendan?
I don't have any more questions right now.
Okay. Can always circle back. Penny?
Nope. I'm happy. Thank you.
Go. Jen?
No, I don't think so. I'm wondering if we're missing any footings for the stairs, but I think that's small.
Yeah, sometimes they just have a small footing or some kind of cement blocks or something like that.
Now I can figure out why I couldn't figure it out, because there hasn't been a deck there for a while, and so the whole thing was looking different to me, but now it makes sense.
Okay. Doug?
No questions.
Jen,
No, I'm all set.
Amy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it seems pretty straightforward, honestly. I met with Tom, came in last week or so, and actually, and it got called out in the building department. And they went in for a building permit, and they didn't have a permit from conservation because, as we know, we're strictly conforming for building permits in flood zone, which all of Hummerock is barrier beach, coastal dune, land subject to coastal storm flowage. So it's a pretty small scale project and small, or modest enlargement of the size it was before of the deck that was there. So anyways, I think it meets the requirements of a -3. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in the audience? Okay, I don't think I have any. I was just curious about that topo line, just showing that 10-foot line. Is that something that we usually see, or is that something they'd just done when they were planning to raise? Just
I'm not sure what the source of this plan is. It's not identified in this particular filing. I mean, as you know, on the RDAs, we are not quite as strict.
Yep.
For plans, because we're trying to help people get these projects done.
There's a plan by Grady in here.
Yeah, Grady.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, and
Sure.
Amy, this plan was done about a year ago for a different reason. They were proposing to move the house. And so this is basically an existing conditions plan. So in talking with Amy, we needed a plan of some sort to show you. So I used this existing conditions plan, highlighted the existing deck, and showed that there was an addition, if you can see the little yellow line, 4 feet to the south. So this plan wasn't put together for the purpose of this, taking the deck down and asking permission to restore it, rebuild it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have anything else. Do I have a motion?
-3, please.
A second?
Second, I'll second it.
Thank you, Doug. All in favor, Richard?
Sure. Yes.
Jen?
Yep.
Brendan?
Yes.
And Frank, yes. Great. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Good night.
You too.
So now, Amy, do you want to go next with administrative issues?
Well, yeah. Actually, what we'll do is, I guess we'll just go. I mean, we have 2 discussion issues on. One is Toll Brothers, Hatherley Road, and we do have some materials that were distributed to you before, and which you can go through. And I also have, pretty sure we've got Dave Buckley and Scott Michelli on the line here. So I'll turn it over to them, and they can maybe go through some questions that you might have. But I mean, it's pretty evident upon the inspections that we've been doing and just the weather. Everybody can see it's been raining. We've had a lot of rain since mid-June till today. So, and we've had some pretty consistent blowouts with the stormwater management on the site in particular. And anyway, so last week, actually, we met with the team from Toll, and they went through a series of things that they're doing to try to get the site under control, and just basically what they strongly feel contributed to massive release that we had to the drain off of Oceanside, resulting in that plume that you all saw picture of from the June 22nd rain event. But since then, I mean, it's been pretty relentless. Mother Nature has been, and I think that just portions of the property are at a pretty vulnerable point, and apparently they're doing what they can. But Frank, I don't know, how do you want to handle it? Because you were at the meeting, and so I mean, but basically we just want to have kind of a discussion, because I mean, clearly we are the enforcement leg here for the town. Like, the planning board really has their hands tied. Although they are the stormwater authority, we also jointly hold that authority under our order of conditions. So we also have the ability to, administer penalties as appropriate, enforcement actions. And so I just kind of wanted to have some open conversation about what direction you want to take. I know planning had toll in at their Thursday planning board meeting, and while I was not in attendance, I heard that one of the things that came out of that was they want some engineering calculations to demonstrate just what the volume is coming off the site, and just we want to make sure that it's managed and that we're not having outbreaks of silty water, especially at this point in the project. It's tough to see. So I'll call it that. And Frank, you can, I'll let you decide what you want to do, how you want to do it.
All right, well, maybe just to enlighten the members a little bit more. I mean, you're all aware of how much rain we've had, but I don't have all the dates in front of me, but there was a considerable amount of rain on the site at Toll Brothers, and with the area of ground that's disturbed and without grass or anything taking effect, there was a lot of silt and runoff off the site. It went into catch basins, and it wound up discharging into the ocean down off of Oceanside Drive, and also puts a lot of silt in catch basins along the edge of the road, some of the neighbors' properties. And so we met with representatives from Toll to discuss this, along with representatives from Horsley Witten, who are looking at Amy, Karen Joseph from planning, and town engineer Sean McCarthy. We all met with them and discussed what's going on and what they're trying to do, and they gave us a rundown on the things that they're trying to implement to control that. But it was my feeling in looking around that a lot of the siltation and erosion control on the site in general has been neglected. There's a lot of it that's been run over in order to access the site. Trucks and equipment are just entering the projects sort of haphazardly. They're not using the entrance areas, and the project just wasn't as secure as it should be. Nobody would have anticipated this much rain, but when you open up that big an area and you're exposing your site and the people around you to that sort of thing, you ought to be you ought to be accountable for that. And it was just disappointing to see that. They gave us some rundown on what they were adding and whatnot, but I'm still questioning whether in some of the areas it's adequate until the site is secure. So you can see by the photos how much was running off there. When that silt runs into the marsh, or when it runs down the street and then winds up in the ocean, has environmental impacts, and they're responsible for that. So I'm happy. I don't know whether they want to add anything to this tonight, but our question is, is a matter of finding for this sort of thing, and what's being done and how fast it's being done to correct this.
Yeah, Frank, just real quick, the photos that are up right now are ones that show an example of what they have done since the blowouts on the 22nd.
Oh, okay.
So this is just like you can see that this just in the last week, I mean, it's not like they're not doing anything, you know, they're definitely, they're out there, but the water is coming at such a rate and a volume that it's overtopping and overcoming the silt sock and the silt fence that's there. And if you've been by the site, you'll see that on the east side of Hatherley Road, they are quickly building the condos that are along there, which were originally designed as single family homes. And now they're, well, I guess they're duplexes or what have you. But anyways, all of those were exposed. And so I think that what Scott and Dave are suggesting is that most of the initial blowout was really the sediment from that area. Whereas we've also observed it coming down the Tilden side and at other junctures off of, I mean, I don't know the internal street names, but you know what I mean? Like up off the left, up off the right. So I mean, there's also housekeeping items that might be contributing to this, which I mean, certainly are. There's the drain in Hatherley Road, which is this is the culvert on the right. That's the check dam. I mean, well, that's actually just an example of something that they admit that they did without a valid permit. But, you know, they had to, I guess they had to have that street drain go live. And so the project that they've got under review with us for next week's meeting has actually already been constructed. So, and I think that you know, they're trying to tweak it, they're trying to figure it out, but I just think that we or you as a commission need to drive home how important it is that the permits that they have be, that they are enforced and that how serious you guys take them. So I think that that's why we have them here, you know, so
thanks.
You, Scott and Dave, if you want me to. I mean, I don't know how much time you want to spend on this. It's just an open discussion.
Sure. Well, we've fired off a little bit of a volley, and they, if they can keep it pretty brief, would like to know what they do. What I'd like to do, maybe, I know Penny has to, if she hasn't already left.
No, I'm still here
So,
for the moment.
Penny, why don't you just give us your comments before you have to go?
Okay, what my concern is, how do you really stop this from happening? I mean, I know we've had a lot of rain this month. It's been torrential, awful for everyone. But, you know, you see the rocks here supposedly to catch the water and disperse it. I mean, is there something else they have to be doing to be catching this water? What is going to stop it from happening whenever we have a heavy rain? They're not going to someday just run out there once they leave, and every time there's a rain, have people go out and put up, you know.
Well,
I'm concerned.
So those are awesome questions. And so like now what Jen's showing is the east side of Hatherley Road. But I mean, as we know, right, so the toll site is a very large site.
Yes.
Beginning when they shall we say opened up during the initial stages of the site development, we know that like several years ago we had some challenges out there with water leaving the site, and they did develop with SLT a series of large construction basins, where some of them are the actual like permanent basins, but most of them are acting as like their construction water basins. So they're catching the water before it leaves the site, because everything's supposed to stay on site, and pumping it back uphill. And you know what I mean? So they're they're constantly doing that, but I think it's just, it's the intensity of the storms that we've had in the last couple of weeks has overcome what they were prepared for. And they weren't prepared on site to deal with just the amount of rain that came down in the short amount of time that it did. And then they had some vulnerable areas, like I said, the duplexes on, like in the beige there, highlighted on the east side of Hatherley, but then they also, you know, have been pumping like mad up on the regular part of the site too.
Right.
And that's largely kept under control. There's a couple of areas, I mean, I don't know. I know that Dave has a lot of information and Scott does too, but I just don't know how much into the weeds we want to get with the specifics of, like, you know, where everything's happening, because I think it's more like the big issue. You know what I mean? So it's really comes down to the fact that they were not prepared to handle the amount of rain that we've had in the last couple of weeks. And we want to know what they're doing, and we need to decide, or you need to decide as a commission, if, you know, what and if there's a penalty for the fact that they've failed pretty largely. So, I mean, I can turn on Scott or Dave. I can unmute them so they can.
I have to leave. Let me just say one thing before I leave. That they need to be prepared at all times for the worst case scenario. And that's my feeling. And if that means this should not have happened at this stage of the game. We've had enough problems out there that they should have been over prepared. That's my feeling. But I'm going to leave now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Penny.
Yeah.
Thanks, Penny.
I'm just bouncing this back and forth. Does any commission members, you'll have time to comment whether you'd prefer to hear from Toll Brothers, or you want to make your own comments or questions first and let them address your questions.
Right.
So, yes, Richard.
The only thing I would add is actually echoing Penny to a certain extent. Yes, we've had a lot of rain and an unusual amount for June and July, but not an unusual amount in spring or in fall. We've gotten a little reticent about rain the last couple of years because there really hasn't been that much, but it is not unusual for us to have storms like this. Just usually they're in the spring or in the fall. So I do agree. They should have been prepared and they weren't.
Okay. Might as well go right down the list then for a minute. Doug, do you want to add anything yet?
Well, yeah, I guess, you know, I'm fines or this particular project aside, I think in general, what I guess what I would appreciate is some professional input on erosion control and what we see on plans. What I'm trying to get around to is prevention. I know we can find people and stuff like that, and that has its own incentive, but I think we do have to be prepared for storm events like this on a routine occurrence. And just anecdotally, even single family house lots, I've seen some major failures. When you go by, there's a recently a house constructed not too far from me, and somebody drove over those little silt socks, and it just the silt came right down and filled up the catch basin nearby that went right out into the Scituate Harbor, and all those kind of things happen on a routine level. And I think we've just kind of gotten to used to seeing on a plan that comes in, it's got a little dotted line that says proposed silt sock, and that's erosion control, and we just kind of move on from that. And I have a real question about how much erosion control those little things will happen. Gauging by those pictures, they're not adequate to handle that kind of runoff. So I guess I'm from a bigger picture, as I'd like to look at this beyond just this one project, and I'd appreciate some sort of input you know, on erosion control in general. I mean, and like, you know, last meeting we had, we have some erosion control problems on sites that are already built, and they need to be vegetated slopes and all those kind of things. And how, you know, what do we look for? What is adequate enough? And I don't have that kind of background that can say, like, you know, those little silt socks, what are those going to handle? How much water runoff? There's got to be a formula for that. There's probably got to be some acceptable numbers. And is there something that should be done or can be done in, you know, regards to that? Amy mentioned like a detention pond. You know, maybe one of the answers on large site constructions would be to go ahead and just construct the full size basin, knowing full well it's going to fill up with silt, and then it's going to have to be cleaned and regraded later on to function as a detention pond. I don't know, but I feel that even though, you know, it has been torrential rain, you know, my sump pump hasn't stopped, and everybody's experiencing things like that. I kind of think we have to kind of look at this as being not unusual. And plans that come in, there needs to be a specific looking at erosion control, because I just feel like it's been too easy to be able to go on projects and just say, hey, they got their silt socks in, let's move on. And I just wonder how many little sites around the town failed over the last couple of weeks, because I've seen some myself just you know, just by happening by places. So, and I don't know. I know that's not the question or answer.
Well, it's part of it.
But it's, yeah. I just feel like I'd appreciate taking a larger look at erosion control from our jurisdiction. And I'm not suggesting we never have to change the regulations, but maybe have a published policy on erosion control when it comes to projects, that we can gauge the expectations for the engineers when they come in the door. They know what's expected. So we're a little bit more ahead of it and don't have things like that happen. But that's my input.
But before go to Jen, just for a second, there's a couple of things. I don't know whether anybody caught it, but when we were actually discussing the hearing of the projects on the old Driftway, there was a question of making a connection to the sewer line, and Doug brought that up to the engineer and said, you know, they were talking about having just a one-day connection, and they didn't need to be paired for much because they'd be in and out in a day. And about a week later, we got like this gully washer that if they had that thing open at that time, it would have flooded it all out. I don't know if you remember it, Doug, but
I do. Yeah.
You asked that question of the engineer and said, what are you going to do if you get nailed with a storm in the middle of your project? And they really were pretty flat-footed in the answer. The other part, Doug, that I mean, it's a little frustrating for me. I mean, we have the applicant that does this project. They have their engineers do the stormwater pieces and all this. And then we retain a person that's supposed to be on site and review this. And we have kind of, I think, changed the way the reports are being done by that engineer, getting back to us and getting back to the applicant or the project manager in a more timely fashion with the concerns that they have. But we do already have a couple of sets of eyes looking at, and here we still have a problem. So it does seem to be worthy of more review, and maybe move on to Jen, but your points are well made. So thanks. Jen?
Doug can have all of my minutes because I really appreciated all of the things he was saying. So I would strongly echo everything, but he used fancy engineering words. So.
There you go. Brendan?
Yeah, I'm gonna go the route of Jen pretty much. You know, I'm agreeing with what Doug said. I agree with what Richard said, and if I kind of go by my own experience at my home and my sump pump, we should be expecting this type of weather. We just didn't get it in the last couple of springs. So I don't know. I think that this was a significant event, but it's not an exception. So to the rule.
Okay, thank you. Amy, if you want to open up to Dave or.
Yeah,
Jose.
I will. Well, and just really quick though, I just want to say that, I mean, the town, we have a engineering company, as you know, Horsley Witten, who performs regular inspections as a third-party role, but Toll themselves, they hold the responsibility on making sure that the site is intact and is in compliance with their stormwater pollution prevention plan. So, I mean, it's more reaching than our local permits, because it also involves the EPA, because that's the SWIP is an EPA permit. So, and so I know that they have, responsibility for submitting reports within a certain time frame after a rain event, like after a significant rain event. They've got requirement to themselves, walk the entire site and make sure that all of these limits of work are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that they're ready for the next storm. And if they need to be replaced, they're supposed to be, they're informed that they need to do that. Horsley Witten, will verify what they're saying. And I know that there's been a little bit of disconnect as far as, Horsley Witten is reporting back, like, we see that there are, down the slope, you can see where it's riddled out because the water's come down and it's eroded off the bank, so I like things like that. They don't always match. So that seems to be something that is a constant, it's a back and forth between Toll and the town. So we watch it, and a lot of the oversight management comes from the town planner. I mean, she has been out there basically every day in her boots out there, and snapping these pictures. I mean, there's no doubt that we've got the proof, and I don't think that Toll is disputing that. I do think that we just need to hear from them the efforts that they're making now and how they're going to demonstrate to us. You're right, the bigger picture in being prepared for what, I mean, it could be, I sure hope it's not, but it could be rainy the rest of the summer. Who knows?
Well,
So,
I guess my point with this, Amy, is we have an applicant with an engineer that says they've put together their proposal and here's what they're going to do with there's a whole pile of stuff that they've already done with this job. Their construction phases and erosion control during different phases and basins that was sacrificial and all that stuff. We had all that. And their engineer stamped and said that all this will work. And then we hired a consultant to do that. And then they said it would all work. And here we are with a problem. So along with Doug saying that we should be looking at some of these pieces, I really think that we should evaluate our own review of this. I know Karen's done a lot to be out there. We've gotten reports on that. We have heard back from them, but I'm disappointed on both ends. And it's serious.
Hmm.
All right. Well, let's let these guys in. But we did want to keep it on the briefer side.
I'm unmuting Scott first and Dave. You guys are on. You can keep it brief. It'll be good.
I'll keep it as brief as you want it to be. We'd certainly not like to be here for this reason tonight, but we acknowledge our responsibility and our failures of what's happened out there. You know, when we met out on the site, we were coming here tonight to talk about that one singular rain event and what went wrong in that event and what we did after that event. And, you know, even the rain events that we've had since then have exposed other problems that we have on the site. And, you know, collectively, you know, we acknowledge we need to do better. And, you know, collectively, Toll Brothers as a team are, you know, trying to pull together that plan for different areas of immediate need and addressing those. You know, and I think to what Mr. Harding was mentioning, I kind of think that we got lulled into a little bit of false sense of security when we didn't have significant issues through the spring. And, you know, all of a sudden June comes along and we get, you know, not crazy rain events, but just one after the other. And, you know, once we think we've fixed one problem, you know, it exposes some other weakness that we have. So, you know, we're going to get after it pretty quickly here. We're meeting on site tomorrow as a team, along with some of our contractors, to talk about some of the immediate needs that we need to jump on. And I think from the one immediate question that I would like to raise to the commission is the issue that we have on the east side as it relates to the whole back of those 5 duplexes. And as it relates to the storm drain that comes off of Hatherley. And one of the issues we had last Friday was that the runoff coming off of Hatherley down that drain pipe and anything that was shedding off, even the 2 buildings to the right that were essentially, you know, they're sodded and there's some grass growing in the back, but it was all loam covered. That runoff is all running towards the back and it hits the erosion control and it takes a sharp left and it all came down towards Norwell Terrace.
Scott, excuse me, Amy, can you just go, you had up the other submittal, which had the photographs, the other PDF that Scott sent over earlier. That's what he's referring to now.
So the check dam, yeah.
Yeah, if you go to there was I think there was a plan. You know, well, this is good enough. You know, this is good. This image is good enough. So if you sort of look at the right hand picture there, this is the outfall from the drainage structure on Hatherley, and the water is coming out of the structure over the riprap through the check dams. We have a jute meshed swale, and it's you know, the grass is germinating. One of this is the subtleties of managing a site of this nature is it's ever evolving and ever changing. Take this structure, which was just installed. The water came down this past Friday, hit erosion control measures at the very end. If you look far in the far distance, that little turquoise blue line is representing that section of silt fence that was contiguous. And instead of going straight out into the marsh, which is what that water should do, and is designed to do, because we have erosion control there to protect the marsh temporarily, it actually went left and went went not to the marsh, but raked across the back of those entire lots. So one of the things we wanted to do as part of this evolving process to perfect this area was to sod this swale, remove that silt fence in that little turquoise section, to allow the water to go over completely stable soil now and out into the marsh and not into our job site, because our site isn't designed to handle all that street drainage. And install a little bit of you can see in the far distance, a little section of pink silt fence to sort of make sure only that water from the street goes out to the marsh. I don't know if I explained that good enough, Scott.
So that, just to be clear who was speaking, can you just say your name? And
Oh, Dave Buckley, sorry.
So
from
Dave,
Toll
yeah,
Brothers.
so,
For the record.
Scott, Dave's looking back to you. I hear what you're saying, Dave, and I'm not an engineer or Scott, and I appreciate the issues of an exposed site and exposed earth, and try to get all that at different times is not an easy situation. We understand that. One of the things you bring up though tonight is that structure was never permitted. We still haven't closed out on that
Right.
on that drain.
Understood.
So, I mean, I just don't know. I understand you're anxious to get these units completed, and there's a market for all this right now. It brings to my point more that we're just bolting full speed ahead, and the emphasis is on getting the units built, and it's not on dealing with these issues. So there's a drainage system that got installed without the and the only thing that was holding that up was at 2 meetings I asked a simple question about what the equipment was or the infrastructure was, and nobody answered that.
Amy, Scott's muted again. Sorry, he was just texting me.
Say that again.
Scott's
Scott,
muted.
Can we keep both of them open?
Oh, Scott's, I'm sorry. There we
No,
go.
that was my mistake. I muted myself again.
Yeah, once you're muted, you're done.
Once I muted myself, I couldn't get back in, so I apologize. So yeah, I mean, I take responsibility for not getting you that information. I asked the contractor for it. It just took forever. So that falls on me to get that information to you faster. So, I mean, to what your comment, Frank, I think you're going to see, what we try to do, unfortunately, is we have so much of the site that by the end of September, there's so many units that are advanced pretty far along, and we're going to be so much further along stabilized, and these events came along. So we now have to double back. We're looking at all of our vendors' schedules to prioritize those areas to get stabilization down. And one of the top priorities is the east side of Hadley, where we have 2 buildings that are completely done. The middle building, there's stuff like decks and stuff that are going on, so it's pretty far advanced. And then the far 2 left units that contribute a lot of the dirty runoff on 622 are in framing. And we're going to expedite, pulling resources off of other areas that, can wait to, try to advance getting the roofs on, the gutters on, getting the driveways paved, and ratcheting down the work areas around the units instead of the whole lot being accessible by, and having vehicles drive all over the stuff. We're going to ratchet that down to about 15 feet off of the buildings and loom and sod everything else around that to try to get everything stabilized. So we're kind of reshuffling our schedules to make things more of a priority to get stabilization down, and not just east side, but everywhere. And I think we can pull together once collectively Toll Brothers as a team and our contractors look at that in the next day or two. We can probably provide something more concrete to say, not just these erosion controls we're going to put in, but this is what we intend to work on over the next 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, in terms of getting areas to their final conditions and stabilized.
I had a couple of things that I was thinking. One is to go back to this drain. So now this drain really shouldn't be producing silty water at all, right? I mean, because isn't it not it's the storm water runoff from Hadley Road. So I mean, any
Should be
silt
clean.
that's coming there could be, well, I mean, I don't know, like, why is that water silty, I guess?
Well, it's running over exposed earth.
Yeah,
It's not stabilized enough yet.
even though the bottom of the swale was jute meshed,
Yeah,
it still scoured the bottom of the swale, which is why Dave is now suggesting, and I agree with that, we would pull up those check dams, and we would pull up the jute mesh, and we would sod the whole thing, and we would still put the check dams back, you know, to try to slow the water down. But to what you're saying, Amy, it's right. The runoff off of that portion of Hatherley is only the paved road. Everything coming down this pipe should be clean, and we think it will be clean. It really was the swale itself that scoured and produced the dirty water at the end.
so once we can get that, or you can get that to a point where it's not producing stable water, so the water appears clean, so it's stable enough, and that water is just road drain, and the intent is for that to be going to the wetland, the question from you is then, can you now let it go there? And I would say that when we get to that point, that would be okay, and I think that would relieve that volume that's now, like Dave said, that's running along that backside to eventually to 6th, right? Was that what you're saying?
Yes.
That's hitting that back. Okay. The other, just from being out there also, and walking on the backside of those duplexes, I mean, I realize that, you know, they're not finished, but when they were originally designed as single family homes, you know, I don't think that the stormwater calculations were really looking at those as they contributed to the site as a whole and to that side of east, you know, the east side of the site. So it sounds like from the planning board, you know, you've come to the fact that you're gonna, you know, get the engineer and get Horsley Witten, get everybody in agreement that whatever management that you have now over there is gonna, you know, you're gonna tweak it so that it works, right? Because I know that, like, when I was walking out there, the storm drains, I mean, not the storm drains, the roof drains from the duplexes just kind of go into the ground and then they daylight, I think, or something like that happens. I mean, it's wet back there is all I can say. It's on that down slope. It's wetter than a golf course. You know what I mean? It's wet. And this is not on the, like, it's seated. You know where I'm talking about, I have a feeling. But I'm just wondering if maybe they should be exploring putting in some dry wells there rather than having those roof drains, you know, daylight, because maybe that's making it worse. Just like, I'm just hoping that you're going to consider all solutions to try to improve this, because anything that you can do, I don't know, maybe we need to meet again. Well, we're going to meet you next week because you're on our agenda, but the intent was just to close up this drain.
Amy, the reason that they didn't use a lot of dry wells or whatnot, if I recall from all the discussion, is the soil there basically doesn't drain well. Most of these
That's right.
things,
The water table is really shallow. Okay.
they have to go to either some sort of basin or something that can hold the water and then evaporate or run off slowly. But
right. Well, okay. All right. So then we're thinking about rain gardens.
But we shouldn't be in. I mean,
something like that.
These guys need to put this together and
Yeah.
of course, go ahead.
We have so that area, the duplex lots, which were single families, were calculated and engineered as part of the stormwater permit. So all of the impervious pre-existing and post-existing calculations were taken into account by Stantec during the initial design. As much as they were technically A&R lots, for full disclosure, we always wrap them into the bigger picture of the site. So those calculations were taken into account and anticipated. Now that we have full as-built data for the site of what actually was built, you know, considering all the permutations and factors over there, we were requested by the planning board to just double check things, so to speak. Now that we have real good data that we can compare the pre-existing condition of what was there in this site, the drainage planes, the rate and volume, and to make sure that we are, all the numbers as designed still agree with what is basically almost completed out there on site. So we're working up those numbers right now with the engineer, and we'll have that data to verify. Now, and that analysis is looking at a when this is all done concept, meaning that when everything is completed, the grass is growing, all the units are done, that when toll is done with everything, that it works as designed. So we're working on that reanalysis, and it will be submitted to the town as soon as we get it, which we hope to be in the next week or two. And so that will be forthcoming, just as a double check to make sure that everything is fine over there.
Okay.
Any commission members have any other questions?
I think that.
I didn't have a chance to listen to the planning board meeting when I did meet with Karen and Amy before. I think there's a couple. We obviously have the ability to levy some fines with this. Some of this stuff is, I get it. It's a difficult situation. It's bad soils. It's all kinds of things. But I think as a town and as our commission or the planning board, what we need to look at and say, what will get this squared away the quickest? And I just wonder if the town should continue to issue certificates of compliance and occupancy until this stuff is brought into control.
Well, and Frank, it's going in that direction, and I'm quite sure that Dave.
And I don't want to hear. I mean, I as a contractor, I see these things, and it's hard. And once they start to happen, it's even worse, because fixing muddy sites is even more complicated than fixing. I get it all,
right.
And I'm sure it's super frustrating on their end. But my question is, as a town and looking out for the things that we're supposed to look out for, how do we accomplish that?
And Frank, if I may, just on one note, and I did see the message, and I understand there's multiple parties here. On the subject of COs, and the town doesn't have to restrict COs to get our attention. You have very thoroughly our attention, and we're committing a tremendous amount of resources right now at the site, and we could go into an enormously long detail of everything that's happened over the last few weeks and what we're doing over the next few weeks. I'm not going to bore the commission's time with all those details, because it is a large amount of things. But in the case of a CO, it impacts more than just toll brothers, to be candid. At this moment, I've got families who are going to be homeless in a few weeks because a unit that's completed and ready to move in, they can't move into. And that's the only thing I'll say. It does impact just more than us on this call. We care about our customers, and we try to protect them and make sure that they have a great experience. But in sort of the immediate time period, there is a swath of folks who have mortgages closing, their homes are being closed by someone else is moving into their house on July 22nd, and their moving truck is scheduled to be here on July 23rd, and now they're going to be homeless. And it's not anyone. I understand it's not I understand the goal of the town is to encourage us to get going, to fix issues. I would just ask that in the case of some things coming up to some folks who really are in a bind, that we maybe can allow them to move into a completed unit, just because of the scheduling, because people do schedule stuff out 30 to 60 days. And if our actions aren't good enough over the next few weeks, we were happy to come every week for the next couple of meetings and meet Amy and Karen and yourself or any members of the board on site to inspect our work and what we're doing. We just implore that you all in the matter of COs, it's not just toll. I mean, it's getting the home complete is business, but it's to us, it's having to call Mrs. Smith and say, sorry, find a hotel room. And with COVID, people still are very worried. Go move in with your kids for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever it is. Those are the things that honestly, that's like my worst part of my job. Honestly, I hate having. So if we could potentially, I'm imploring.
Dave, I understand what you're saying, and I think actions speak louder than words. So you guys, I'm going to be going over this. Amy's going over, Karen. I'm sure members of the planning board, the commission's hearing it. And I guess what you guys do will be a function of how we react. So I'd say just get on it.
Very fair enough. And I appreciate everyone's consideration on that matter. We will, hopefully we will not disappoint anyone with our actions.
Let's hope we don't get any more rain, huh? All right.
That would help as well.
Yep. Okay.
All hands on deck. Thanks.
I appreciate you being with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't cut anybody off, did I? Anybody else wanted to say anything?
Good, Frank.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think we got one more hearing. Thanks a lot.
We do?
We have a replication for Man Lot Road. Right.
Yeah, we have, I was asked, requested by the owner, a 48-man lot to put his project on the agenda. We don't typically put confirmation of replications on, but that's all I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna unmute.
So is it Dr. Price that's on or his engineer?
Yes, it is.
We have a couple of hands raised.
Oh, he's on.
Amy, before they talk, what is the goal?
Yeah. So maybe I can jump into this just a little bit. So this is a wetlands replication on Manlot Road that was supposed to have been done with a project some time ago. It was not, I think it wasn't totally completed. Then there were changes to the site. The applicant here never got a certificate of compliance. And then when we went out to do the certificate of compliance, realized that that this wetlands replication was not in compliance and there were other changes to the site. So Amy and I met there, discussed it with the owner. They had Ross Engineering, and then I think Brad Holmes develop a restoration plan, and they've done all that. And their bind, one is that they need to move forward with this in order to refinance. And I should probably let Dr. Price jump on at this point, but I think we're okay with the restoration as far as I'm concerned. Maybe Amy wants to weigh in on that, but it seemed like everything was done with what we requested, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So just like, what are we hoping to get out of something that we normally don't do? So
the issue is that they're having difficulty refinancing their home or project with an open set of orders, or not having a certificate of compliance. And we've had this go back and forth before. Some banks, institutions are willing to accept a partial CFC. And in other cases, I think we've taken an issue to CFC if we have some funds to ensure that gets done, is basically what I think we should be thinking about.
Frank, didn't we get a thing from Brad Holmes going over all of this and all of the things that were planted and
Yep.
even a bunch of pictures? Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about, right?
Yes, I did take a look at it, and it looks like they did a good job from my standpoint.
Yep.
But I think the real question is typically, or one of the things we would do is hold off on a complete CFC for a season or two to make sure these things get established. And what the applicant is asking us is that they're up against it in terms of their refinancing or whatever, and trying to see if there's a way that they can get a CFC and do something else to make sure that we have adequate guarantee that this gets complete is I think where we're headed. So if you want to unmute Dr. Price or whoever's on.
I think I'm unmuted, Frank.
Okay.
Thank you for taking this up tonight. I just want to, highlight a couple of things in Brad's report. Obviously, you mentioned that the restoration project was completed to the approved restoration plan, and that the portion of the BVW that was impacted had grown back considerably. I think he provided pictures to that effect as well. And not only did we plant I think it was 42 or 43 odd plantings that Brad had recommended, but we actually added 3 or 4 others just to kind of fill it in a little bit more and make it look a little bit nicer. We talked about the BVW having been seeded and it's vegetated nicely. The restoration area is nearly 100% vegetated and is stable. The restoration area is in good condition, and impacted BVW associated buffer zone has been fully stabilized. And since Brad's report, which was June 6th, I think the plantings have, for the most part, grown about another 4 or 6 inches. So they're obviously doing well. They've been in the ground now about almost 3 months. They've been wood chips around them to keep the moisture in contact with the plantings, which has not been a problem lately. So our desire is to go for a refinance of our property. It's my son's property is a accessory dwelling, but he's on the deed as well as my wife and I. And I have contacted Hingham Institution for Savings, who has the mortgage currently, Rockland Trust, Coastal, and Liberty Bay. And these are banks that I have done business with, both professionally and personally, in the last 35, 40 years. And none of them will consider a refinance without a request, a full certificate of compliance. And in listening to the party just in front of me in the septic plans that you reviewed tonight, it seems like the commission does have leeway, when there are certain conditions that are present, to make it feasible for people to go ahead with their projects. So that's all I'm asking for, is that same consideration. I don't think it's fair for me to be held up for 2 years to wait for a certificate of compliance. Plantings are doing fine. I'm willing to put up I don't know whatever you want to call it, a bond, an escrow amount to cover any plantings that might fail over the course of the year. So I think I've upheld my bargain, or my side of the bargain. And I think it is, only fair that I be allowed to be considered for a certificate of compliance so that we can move forward with our refinance plan. My son has added another child. He needs to have some work done to his property, his house, to accommodate that. And it's just not really to do it, currently with a 6% mortgage.
Thank you, Dr. Price. I I guess one of the things that comes to my mind is as we look at this, so to Dr. Price's point, just before this, we have a site that there's silt running everywhere on the site and that we continue to give occupancy permits and close them out. And the reason that we do that is because they have bonds that say that they're going to finish that job. And so we have a site that's got violations going everywhere and people continue to move in and we close on it. And then we have a site where someone's worked really hard to put this together and they're willing to put up money in case they have any plants that fail. They've acknowledged that some mistakes were made there. They've moved, I think, very cooperatively to correct that. And I just wonder how can we allow one thing and then on the other hand not work with someone on a specific site? I guess that's the conflict I have here.
Frank, we've offered a partial C of C with a holdback, which is what we do on these sites, as you're aware. So
I understand we do that, Amy, but my point is where in the case of like a Toll Brothers, they continue to get occupancy permits for multiple units on a site that's in failure because they have a bond. And then we have a single site where really an exceptional job's done to contain all that. Yes, they did something that they shouldn't have done here. They should have completed all this. Some changes were made and they're looking for the resident of the town of Scituate's looking for assistance in trying to figure this out. And I'm almost certain that we've given people a certificate of compliance with some sort of surety that things will be done. And I'm just wondering how do we deal with this?
I think it's a really tricky situation because I think you're pointing out something valid, Frank, in that Toll Brothers is in significant violation of many things. It does seem as though I would like to separate, but keep those together in the sense that I think we've all kind of had a little bit of a come to Jesus tonight on how things need to change with Toll Brothers. I'm not in favor of doing anything more than a partial on this because I think it's like a DEP regulation on 3 years of monitoring or 2 years or something like that. And then it just feels like a slippery slope in terms of all of the other times that we've had, people asking for these things and we say no. It's like, I want to be able to say consistently that we say no, we're willing to offer a partial, but you're not done yet.
Okay. Richard, Doug.
So I'm looking at Brad Holmes's letter and he has a statement and says the restoration area is nearly 100% vegetated and stable at this time. So I guess I'm wondering what else has to be done here? What are we waiting for?
Usually we have to wait 2 or 3 years to make sure the things stay stable. Or we held back a bond or something like that in certain cases to allow for the fact that something might fail and there would be money available to replace it.
Okay, it sounds like the Mr. Price offered that. Did I miss that?
He did.
Because I get what's going on with their if I got this right, because I remember this discussion before, that not having a COC is going to hold up the ability to get a loan.
Right.
Right. So which causes certainly some hardships there. So when I see something like nearly 100%, doesn't define, what's missing, but Brad tends to be somewhat of a conservative guy, so I'm thinking it's probably in pretty good shape. He indicates that in his letter. So what I wouldn't know is like how much money would have to be held back, but I would be in favor of doing that, and letting them move forward, since they've done what looks to be a good job in their plantings, and he even mentions no invasive have returned. So I guess that's where I'm falling out here, is that if he's willing to, I don't know what the number would be. I have no idea what the dollar amount would be to put that back, but I'm guessing a few $1,000s or something like that. But I fall into that category, letting them move on. And but with continued review for whatever our standard time period is, 2 or 3 years, to make sure that they stay put and everything just doesn't die and get wiped out by other species.
It's specifically laid out in the DEP replication manual. It's 75%, I think, for 3 years. But I mean,
Okay.
they all go in at 100%, right? Because you propose to put in 20 plants, you install 20 plants, and then you just, that's just the way it works. That's the replication part.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would be in favor of some sort of surety bond or whatever we could do to allow them to move ahead. And I kind of sympathize with Jen's point, but I think there is a difference between a big development and an individual who is trying to make something right and making best efforts at it.
Right. I'm almost divorcing this from the big development.
Yeah.
And we do have lots of one-offs. And so how is this story any different? And I don't want to, I think we've gotten into some tricky conversations as a commission over buffer zones and what's this and what's that. And like, this feels like another quote unquote buffer zone type discussion where we're going to have, it's easier to stay by the book instead of creating one-offs. This was something they've known about for 10 years.
How about Brendan?
Part of me was hoping you'd forget about me. Because this is a tough situation. And I see both sides of it. I think if I was going to fall one way or the other, stay by the book and, large corporation, individual person, I think there's been a lot of effort here to make it right. Although there was plenty of time to have made it right, in the past, but there's been a lot of effort to actually get this right. And I'm kind of feeling like I might fall on the side, like with Richard and Doug, and to try to make this work out for this resident. That's just my thinking at the moment. So
I just like, how are you going to explain this? Not you, Brendan.
I know. Well, yeah, me too, right? How am I going to explain it to the next person? To the next
right.
We're setting a precedent.
Like, this is a precedent-setting issue. It's a no for me.
Yeah.
Can I ask, Amy, where does it say that we can't issue a certificate of compliance? There is the piece that replications have to be done for a period of time, but I'm not sure. I think people are coming up against more issues when it comes to finance than ever before. 20 years ago.
I have the replication manual, and it's DEP's manual, and it goes through it exactly. So I can't cite exactly where it says it, but I sent you the cause out of it, but I can go through it again and see if there's some kind of wiggle room in there. But I think the wiggle room there is, we're giving, I mean, we've offered to give a certificate of compliance, but it's called a partial and there's a holdback. So the holdback is a guarantee, but anyway, so you're getting a C of C. So we're offering it because by and large, I mean, the project wasn't built in accordance with the site design, but putting that aside, and the fact that the new replication plan that you did agree to this spring, they planted it. So that's great. You know what I mean? So they're certainly eligible for some kind of a certificate of compliance. I mean, typically we don't we don't have these conversations because it's laid out in the orders very clear that, you know, you plant your replication and then there's a you know, there's a three, actually it varies between a 3 and a 5
year.
in which time, I mean, there could be eligible for a partial, which we certainly could check the box for a partial C of C. And then there's a holdback of your discretion. I mean, sometimes there's no particular large holdback. I mean, it could be as small as $500, you know what I mean? And other times I've seen the commissions, you know, hold back a more substantial amount, like, you know, $6,000. So it just depends on the project, I guess. We could get another opinion from like a peer review consultant on why it is that it's important to make sure that these, you know, adhere to these rules. I don't know. I send you the manual, which I sent you portions of the manual. So I know that you read the orders that have replications, because we consistently do see projects that go into these buffers, our do not disturb buffers, or, you know, by accident, people end up building into the, you know, the resource areas. And so that's what happened here. And, you know, there was, you know, wet area. So now they built it in another location to make up for what they encroached on. But yeah, so a certificate of compliance, you know, I think that they're there.
I've seen more and more in being in this business of seeing people trying to get mortgages and things. The banks, lending institutions have made things more and more complicated all the time. And you see people sweating it out over some glitch between something with the building department and the Board of Health or the town or something else. And people are supposed to close. And I know that's always a frustrating part, but a lot of these things weren't an issue 20 years ago. The banks were fine with whatever, and now they're tighter and tighter on some of these pieces, and it leaves people in a real bind between the reality of getting funding or closing on a mortgage or something like that, and trying to do the things that we have. And if you have someone that goes out of their way to make that happen, and have admitted that they should have done other things a long time ago, but they moved swiftly to correct it. And I just don't see why, if there's sufficient money to deal with an issue, again, on a big project like that, they just bond it, and then we allow them to do a whole bunch of things. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's been the policy of the Conservation Commission that it's not taken on a case-by-case basis. It's a standard special condition, and projects that have replications where there's, you know, the plants planted, then there's 75% survival rate, 3-year monitoring, and then you're complete. So that's the condition in the orders. I mean, we just don't generally take it up as a case-by-case basis. So maybe you want to take another look at those conditions so that it's consistent for everybody. Or decide that you want to address these on a case-by-case basis each time, which I think you'll have, you know.
And I guess just to circle back to Dr. Price for a minute. In going back to any of these banks, they understood that they're getting you can have a partial certificate of compliance, and that the only reason that you don't have a full one is a regulation with DEP that is supposed to go for 2 years to establish this growth of whatever the chairman want to use. So
That's correct, Frank. Their legal offices, when they looked at my application, said that they just would not issue a mortgage on a partial.
You're right, Frank. Things have changed over the past 10, 20 years.
The project has been completed according to the plan. I think, you know, a consideration can be made in this case. I don't know if you've had other cases where people are pending mortgage refinancing or not. This is a special circumstance. You know, there's black and there's white, but I always think in certain instances, there's some gray areas to be, looked at. And I'm not asking the board to put yourselves in a difficult position with the next person that comes down the pike and ask for the same thing. But when people like Toll Brothers are being given certificates of completion right and left, and considerations for
and I might have stated the wrong thing. So Toll Brothers doesn't get a certificate of compliance for the whole project, but what we are issuing is occupancy certificates of occupancy, so that people can go forward. They have their occupancy, they can get financing, and then, but the reason that they're in can move forward on this is because they've bonded the project. So
yeah.
Like, I don't know how we resolve this, because if we're voting, like,
so we typically, as a commission, we typically do not, we typically don't vote. The agent does the CFCs.
Got it.
And we don't typically vote that. This is before us.
Could maybe, Amy, or Amy or Jen or somebody, like, I might be missing something, but what unfortunate precedent would we be setting? Like, I'm not sure. I mean, I know that there was a violation at some point. I don't know if they were fined or not. It was before my time on the board. But at this point, they've actually hired professionals. They've done the planting. It's been monitored. What precedent would we be saying by doing a COC with a monetary holdback to ensure
we're
that
offering that, Doug? So we're not. I mean, that's the precedent. It's already been set. So when somebody gets to this juncture in a project, the orders of condition lay it out. So that already says you plant your plants. That's why we encourage people to do it as early in the process as possible. And then you monitor the plants, make sure that they thrive, they succeed. And then the orders require that a certain percentage of the plants do make it. If they don't, they need to plant along the way. And then at the end of it, you're done. So
the risk would be then people would want to start getting their COCs right away and just say, here's a couple $1,000s, and then we're stuck with the task.
Well, which we can do. We do this a lot. Like, and I mean, I've been working as an agent for quite a few years, and I don't see this as an obstacle come up like really hardly ever.
Yeah.
Because if there's a lending institution, oftentimes they'll just take a letter from the office, or they'll get a partial CFC. I mean, we don't like to hand out partial CFCs, honestly, because
Right.
administratively it's
Penny
kind of a
hates
lot of
those.
work. But on the other hand, if it helps, we certainly don't want to be, like an obstacle, you know what I mean? It's like, we do understand that things happen, and so as a requirement of a project, if you were required to replicate and, you want to sell your property or refinance or whatever, then that's why people get the CFCs before they're really eligible. But I mean, so certainly, I mean, like, that's what the solution here is that they can get a partial CFC, which, I mean, the CFC says that you're in compliance. So we're acknowledging the site is in compliance. It's just that the time to make sure that the plants have grown or established maturity has actually passed. You know what I mean?
The problem, Amy, that I heard was Dr. Price was saying that banks won't accept a partial.
Well,
CNC.
I don't understand that, because I mean, that's what I do. I do
Yeah.
a lot of these orders all the time. I mean, you guys write orders with replications all the time. And
Yeah.
we just don't see that as something that's come up as an issue.
I can vouch that it is, and they've all said that the CNC the partial does not release the lien on my mortgage. And that's the fact. That's the four banks that I've talked to. If you have a bank that will issue a mortgage, please give me the name.
And that's where Frank is right. The rules have been changing steadily and making it harder for people to get loans or refinance. The result is it starts falling back on us.
I mean, I don't think we can't recommend lending institutions, but why did you stop at 4? Because there are.
Why?
Well, I know, like, I'm not going to tell you who I refinanced with, but like, you didn't list mine. So I'm just wondering.
These are 4 local banks that I have done business with for the last 40 years.
Okay.
If they're not going to give me a mortgage, I don't think Bank of America or Santander is going to. They don't know me from a hole in the wall.
All right, we have a meeting next Monday, right?
Yes.
All right. I'd like to just discuss this internally a little bit, get back to some of the members individually, whatever, and see if we can't bring this to a head by next Monday.
Yeah, I mean, Frank, I will look in this replication manual, in the DEP replication manual, and see if there's like some kind of a, something that you don't usually do, but maybe there's something that, they put out there as a, as a condition. I mean, as a commission, I mean, you guys can do it. It's just, I do think that I encourage consistency with your decisions in this. And consistently, the conditions require a length of time. So, but we should definitely, that's where I'm at.
All right. Well, that's what I'd like to do, and because we've got a couple other things to deal with this evening, but I'd like to get this sorted out. So, if you could look at that and get something out to us, Amy. In the meantime, we'll talk about that. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. What else do we have?
You were going to talk about.
Oh, so I want to thank everybody for responding on that forestry census, and I just hope you understand we're not planning on doing anything at the moment, other than we have the report from Phil. When we have some time, we can talk about that, look it over some more. And then what that does is enable us to move forward with other programs. I don't know if anybody caught Chronicle the other night, but there was an interesting piece on carbon store in forests. And I know Andy's spent some time with that, but it's really becoming a big deal how we manage our woods and forests and what they do for us. And it was a really interesting piece, but more and more having healthy forests could be one of the big things that we do in terms of our environment and carbon storage and cleaning up the air. And so I think it's not just like a fun thing to do. Managing these woods in a responsible way is beneficial to all of us. And we've acquired them and we've kept them intact, and now we can look towards maybe improving on some of those things. So what I'd like to try to do is come up with maybe a time that we can meet in a workshop format. Try to find an evening that works for the majority of the folks on the commission. One of the things I thought of was maybe a Tuesday night, since either Jen or Amy or both of them are typically working. And then we could try to have it here at Town Hall, but I was thinking maybe more like at the WPA building or some other place where we can just all sit and talk about things, you know, with our philosophies on things like mitigation, how to deal with some of these pieces. We don't get a chance to discuss that often enough. We seem to be at a meeting and then we have to discuss a specific piece, but you know, Jen's brought up a number of good issues. Doug has. We've all had some of these things, and I think if we can just talk about them along with some of the other things going on with the commission without being on the constraint of closing so we can get to another hearing would be helpful. And I don't know if anybody can do it tonight or we can send out something. But if a Tuesday seems to be the best evening, either we're eating up July pretty fast. We've got a meeting again next week, but we could do something either maybe the 27th, or if we go into the 3rd, 10th, 17th. I'm fairly flexible. I don't know if anybody else take a look at their calendar. Maybe Jen could shoot something out, and if the majority of us could do that, I'll buy the pizza.
Sounds good.
All right.
Hold the anchovies, please.
No, or anchovies on the side.
Well, all right, there we go. All right.
On the
All right.
far side.
See how well we can get along.
Well, with the right incentive, it'll work out well. Hey, you know what? That's why we do things as a commission. I think we do a good job with it, and I think it's important to look at all sides. And I saw that the Boston Public Schools were criticized for voting unanimously too many times. So I think we're expected to have some disagreement between us as long as it's constructive.
Yep.
Just as a point of reference, I just look at my calendar. The last 2 weeks in July, I'm open. So I got some sort of commission meeting on the 19th, but other than that.
All right.
And the point of this meeting was that it was to be short. Next meeting is going to be a long one. No, seriously, next meeting, you got some tough decisions you got to be prepared for, because I'm just saying that we love each other very much, group hug, but
It's okay.
There's a saying in the construction world that the time expands to meet the work expands to meet the time allotted. So
You got it.
oh,
all right.
we have a hand up from a phone number. Hold on.
Hi, this is Tim McCarthy, 16 7th Ave. I thought I pressed the right buttons to ask a question during the Toll Brothers discussion, but evidently I didn't. I would just like to point out that our yard at 16 7th Ave has never flooded from rain prior to the Toll Brothers subcontractors drainage and rainwater runoff project up there. Since then, since the 22nd, our yard has flooded with every single rainstorm as recent as this morning's. So it concerns me that the plan is to fill the marsh with water because that water ends up in my yard.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir. Jen, did you get his name? Could you give us your name and your address again, please?
Yeah, Tim McCarthy, 16 7th Ave.
Great, thank you, Tim. So,
and I had pictures from this morning to the Conservation Commission's email. I don't know if you've received them.
Jen's
Tim, but we'll take a look at them. Thank you for calling.
So Tim,
but that was morning.
Okay. Well, obviously you heard the conversations and we've taken it very seriously and we're trying to figure out what's going on here, and we'll be meeting with them and their consultants to figure out where this is going. And my concern is runoff into the marsh as well, because when this first started, we weren't going to have additional runoff into the marsh. And so we hear what you're saying.
Thank you very much. I was also at the meeting Thursday. I think it was last Thursday at the town hall, where Scott represented Toll Brothers. So he acknowledged that his belief that the water coming into my yard through the marsh is because of the drainage solutions that haven't worked to date. And I understand they're going to vigorously try to solve that. But I just wanted to point out that, in the past, with all sorts of rainstorms, we would not get water in our yard. And now with each one, be it as small as this morning's, I've got 8 inches of water in the backyard.
Well, unfortunately, the ground's so saturated that any rain we have now can only flow on the surface. But there's more to all this, and we take it very seriously, and we'll see what we can do. But try to follow this.
Go
ahead.
I would say the next time I call in, I'll make sure that I press the buttons correctly.
Well, none of us have hit this.
Good luck.
Thanks for calling, Tim.
Thank you for your call. Do we have somebody else on? That's it? Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
Do we cover everything? Richard's got a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Brendan seconds. All in favor? Doug?
Yes.
Jen?
Yep.
Is that it? Just the four? Frank, yes. All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye, everyone.
Guys.
Good night.
Night.
See you next week. Thank you.
Bye.